Hey everyone, excited to be here. Hello from, I am in Chicago today. I split time between Chicago and Columbus, so love to see in the chat that there's some folks from both Chicago and Columbus, and we got some Detroit love in here too, which is great. One housekeeping note before we get started. So if you are watching this on our LinkedIn stream, and there are questions coming in, be sure to try to give the thumbs up to questions that you also have as we go through this. So it's a little bit easier for us to be able to sort through the questions, to be able to say, hey, this one has 10 thumbs up and this one has 5, etc. We can prioritize the questions that you're asking a little bit easier if you just vote up other people's questions as opposed to asking your own unique one that may be very similar to someone else's question. So just a quick note if you are going to throw a question out there. Otherwise, I'm going to kick it back over to Monica to get us started on quick presentation. We basically are just going to try to run through a handful of slides here, just tips for you on how to think about your application as we get down to the final couple of weeks here. And then we'll try to save a good chunk of time, maybe half the time that we have, if not more, for your individual questions.
Absolutely. Thanks, Tim. All right, we will get going. So we have two sections that we're going to focus on. I'm going to take the first half, which are the 5 key ingredients to your application. And this is all about communication and communicating the story of you and your startup effectively. The number one thing I will say, and I've seen thousands upon thousands of applications in my time with Techstars, is to be yourself. This is a competitive process, and we are pre-seed, seed stage investors. So we see companies at all different levels. And the best way to be competitive is, honestly, we're looking for unique founders. We're looking for unique founders who have unique takes on problems that they're trying to solve, and that they are able to bring something to that solution that is has value add and is investable. And we'll talk a little bit more about what investable means down the line, but we want you to be thoughtful about who you are and what you're bringing to this problem, not trying to project what you think investors want to hear or what you think Techstars wants to hear, because we see that all the time and it looks cookie cutter after a while. But when you are yourself, that is the value add and that is the competitive edge. So number 2 is showing momentum. And again, us being pre-seed and seed stage investors, our goal is always on looking for different ways to prove and find momentum in the story that you're building about the company that you have. Momentum does not necessarily equal traction, but what we are looking to see is traction by the normal terms of revenue or fundraising or those kind of business pieces, but it is momentum that you have found a market opportunity and that the way that you are approaching the solution has gained legs, that people are excited about it, and here's how you're going to prove it. So if you're looking at your past 3 to 6 months of action, and some people have just formed their company less than 6 months before they applied to a Techstars accelerator. But what we're looking for is in that time period, what are you identifying as critical indicators that the solution that you're trying to solve or the way that you as a founder are approaching it are so value added that you're able to prove that there's momentum in this and that there'll be money behind this down the line. Anything that's a propensity towards execution is key, and execution can be a fully manual thing that eventually one day will become automated after you build the solution. But what we're really looking for you to do is to show your work. Show us how you're going about it. Show us the clever thing that you did to build a wait list. Show us the way that you're able to prove value in the stream of how you're building your business. And then people who want to share, 80,000 awards and 80,000 different things like that. All that is great, but really at the end of the day, we're investing in businesses. So we're looking for things that show that you have a product, that it is solving a problem, that people are willing to pay for it, and that those things are things that can increase in value in a specific amount of time. So we're looking for execution things towards those things more so than accolades or social media followers or anything like that. Sometimes those things can be relevant depending on your business model, but definitively we're looking for things that trend you towards execution and momentum versus anything else.
Yeah, the only thing I would add to that before we jump to the next slide is I think a lot of times, especially super early stage founders, like they just are latched on to the expectation that they believe investors have for them to like have what is typically viewed as traction. And that meaning revenue, meaning some sort of user growth, et cetera, engagement metrics. Those are all great. If you have those, talk about them. But the velocity of those things is like actually what matters. Like the raw numbers are what they are, but like for example, if you have revenue but it's hasn't budged in 6 months, like that is something that we are going to have questions about. And if that's the case, like explain it, help us understand why that is the case. And there may be really good reasons for that. But if you just basically say, hey, we have revenue and it's been 1,000 a month and it's been 1,000 a month for 6 months, like we need to understand that story. And so I think when Monica talks about momentum, I think it really is like we need to see the velocity of movement, over recent history, because then that is one thing that we know is very projectable, to the future of your company. Is if you're able to make a lot of progress, in a short period of time and demonstrate it, then like we believe if we invest, then that's going to continue as you have more resources, that come from our investment in the future. So that is my little editorial.
No, share your vision. Big visions they do lead to big markets. But I want you all to understand is that we are believing and we're putting investments in those who we believe that we can sell to other investors, but that also that we can sell to ourselves and our internal clock that has us constantly comparing and contrasting your application amongst the hundreds of or thousands of applications we've seen that month during our cycle, during our tenure at Techstars or whatever. So you want people who believe in your vision. So share your big idea and bring us into that and into that moment of what you're trying to build. Because that kind of thing will allow us to kind of build with you. And that will allow us to, that's what an accelerator is. So we're looking for people who could be successful within that process. I love this one, and we talked about this one ad nauseum in my past classes, and when we've done some other sessions for future applicants for the Detroit market, is tell us about what the world will look like when your company is flying high. Tell us about that. Tell us what you see being different, and build us into how that works. And then also, if you can break down the steps that you're going to use to get to that state. Again, those are way more value added moments to share than any kind of high production video or any of that other stuff. What we're looking for is we want to understand how you think, because that's a huge part of this, is trying to understand how you think and how you're thinking and where you see the company going. And I would say that market opportunity right now is the sibling to the why now question. We'll talk about why now in a bit, but like the market opportunity piece is super key here. At the end of the day, again, we're investing in businesses, and we're trying to understand how the market might respond to you, how they are responding to you now, and how what's going to happen in the future. But yeah, proving your market, that is the mark of we invest in founders. We say that we say that publicly. We've said that multiple times. We invest in founders who we believe in, and that sometimes supersedes where your idea is. But proving that you are a founder who knows your particular market in a very unique way, or you have an unfair advantage because of who you are and because of your vision for a particular solution, those are things that resonate and will keep you higher when we're comparing and contrasting applications towards the end than somebody who has a very neat, polished story, but it doesn't have a big vision. Doesn't have an ability to scale. It doesn't have the ability for us to dig in and say, oh, well, if we apply Techstars network, or if we apply this funding or this whatever thing, we can even supercharge it even higher. But bring us into that so that we can build with you, and then that will have a much better outcome for you than anything else.
Like that last point that Monica made is like such a key one, that like you can have a lot of good building blocks, in both your story and your progress. But like, if you can't convince us that this is something that can, become a large transformative business, then it isn't necessarily a great fit, for a company that's on a venture trajectory, which are the kind of companies that like we, look for, here at Techstars. So, a lot of people, I think, look at when they think about market opportunity, they're like, great, I'm going to create my TAM slide and I'm going to put some numbers and it's going to look really big and that's great. Sometimes, that's useful sometimes. But I think what's more powerful most of the time is what Monica had said earlier, which is like, tell us about what that world is going to look like when you are, flying high, I think was the phrase that Monica used. Like, I think that is like, if you can paint that picture and help us understand like how the world has changed by, your company at its highest moment, like that helps us truly understand your ambition and the breadth of your vision. And I think that is very powerful for us, even above sometimes companies that have made progress, maybe
Money.
more progress. Like, we need to see, that large upside. So keep that in mind for sure.
And I'll just really quickly chime in and say, passion will take you places where money and proof won't. And if you have a vision and a passion for what you're doing, that's going to sustain you when the chips are down and the money is gone, or when you're trying to fundraise but you're having a hard time, or when your dev is delayed another month and another month and another month. Passion and conviction into what you're doing, that will take you places that those kind of things can't. And so we look for that, and you have to have that broader view. And then, as Tim mentioned, this thought, like everybody always wants to focus on like getting these really big numbers for their TAMs, and like, oh, if I get this big number, then they're going to invest. And I'll be honest with you, I tell people all the time, honestly, I don't really put much stock, unless it's really well done. I don't put much stock into the TAM slides, because most people don't know how to do them well. Yes. You don't know how to model the market, and that's okay. You're young. You're young in you're young in your building of the company, whatever age you are. But you don't yet know what the market's going to be, and more often than not, you're choosing a big number that either can't be substantiated or you don't have a direct path to. And so again, I'd rather dig in with questions on a market than see some big number on a TAM. And again, the questions are answered through your vision. And like really being specific about your vision and how it will work for you as a founder, and how you see it working for the world once your company is up and running.
By the way, like complete side thought related to markets, like make sure that you don't just assume that we understand everything that there is about your market, by the way.
Absolutely.
Like, I think a lot of times I see people talk about like something and they're like, well, of course we're going to do this because the state of the world is like this. And well, I'm like, don't assume I understand the state of the world. Like, I don't know. Like, there's certain markets I know well, but there are a bunch that I don't. And I assume that applies to all of my colleagues, here at Techstars. There are areas that we are, more experienced in, and there are others that we aren't. So teach us areas where, you need to. And like the more that you are able to teach us about markets that you're attacking, then the more credible you sound, your ability to go after it. So that's another one where I think when you take your time to tell your story in your application, try to do that well.
Awesome. And number 4, why you? Same as the beginning of like being authentic, but you want to say why you? Why are you the founder that is going to bring this idea to market faster than other people, or better than other people, or the way that you believe that you're going to approach your solution, which can change. Everybody pivots. I always tell my teams that all the time. People pivot all the time. That's not a problem. But why you? Why are you the one? What unfair advantage do you have that will make you be the one to do this AI idea, or to do this fintech idea, or why are you going to be the one to do it when other people are doing variations of it, or other people are even doing the same idea in this, in a similar market? So the why you piece is super, super key. And if you don't know that, you really need to kind of spend some time going out and talking to people, spend some time researching, spend some time getting some feedback on maybe what other people think, why are you, but also just doing a self-assessment of why yourself, and being able to effectively communicate those during the application. To be able to say, yes, I have 10 years of experience here, or, I've done this many customers discovery interviews, or I saw this because I had this, this part-time role, or this consulting role, or I was working full-time and I realized that this was a gap, and I decided that I was going to solve it. And I decided, I tested it, and this is how I put my own money in, or my own time in, or whatever. The why you question is huge, and it parallels the why now. But competition is super fierce, guys. I cannot express that enough. And I also tell people all the time, as Tim was mentioning, like people assume just because we look at thousands of apps that, they know all about this market. but tell me why what you know about this market is going to be the unfair advantage that is going to make your company be the one that breaks ground and is able to fundraise and able to scale. If you're able to do that, then you have a better chance of being competitive. Um, and I cannot express enough volume. Um, Volume of just inbound messages to us as investors and us as Techstars Accelerator leads, the volume of people that we meet at conferences and live and in different events. There is a volume of folks that are doing the same thing that you're doing. And so you have to know very clearly the why you piece, or be able to communicate it very clearly, the why you piece, in order to be successful with all of that volume, especially when it comes to applications. Because we have a lot of folks who are vying for these spots. And the better that you can communicate it is paramount. It's not so much, oh yeah, I can say, oh, we made $1 million, or we made 200, we made 200K ARR, MRR or something like that. Like, that sounds great, and that's the dream. But in reality, how you get there is being really careful on statements like this, and being really thoughtful about your approach to communicating who and what you are to the world of venture.
My only other thing I would add is, if you have a very personal story about why you're doing this, talk about it. I think sometimes founders are like a little bit nervous about like injecting, being a little bit vulnerable and injecting that sort of personal story, into the narrative, and like want it to be, like very, seem very rational or whatever. But that's not what starting companies often is, right? It's not really a rational endeavor. So
No.
like, if you were going to do something rational, you probably wouldn't be starting.
You would do this.
Yeah. So talk about why you're making somewhat of an irrational choice. And I think a lot of times there is a personal connection, like there is a meaningful story there. And so to underscore the why you, don't be afraid to tell that story, because we're human beings too. And so when you tell a very, human story, like, we're likely to react to that positively. So.
I think it's that Kerouac poem. I think it's The Ones for Me Are the Mad Ones. The mad to live, mad to those are the folks that are good at, those are the folks that do it every time. So it's definitely not the most rational choice. It's not the measured thing. It's the moment in time of inflection. And it takes a lot of grit to get that. And so the why you is telling that story of your grit, your background, what you're doing, why you're doing this, and what you're going to bring to it once you bring it to market. So number 5.
Number 5.
Why now? Again, like, you would think it'd be these secret, these things that no one's ever heard of, but it is these basic things of communication that people kind of gloss over in their applications. And then that is why they don't get as much traction as they should, because they spend so much time, focusing on, oh, I need this number or this kind of thing. But the number still has to be a part of a larger narrative and a larger story. So the next piece is the why now. What change is happening in the market right now that you are taking advantage of? Again, we talked about the unfair advantage before, like, could be a job that you have, could be connections that you have, could be work experience that you have. Something is happening that allowed you to say, here's this mismatch of opportunities and resources, and I'm going to expose this mismatch and create a solution for it, and build a company off of that solution, and scale it to a way that we're attacking this problem in a really tangible way for a very specific set of customers. That's the why now. It could be inflections in technology. Most of the major firms that you've seen go on and scale to large heights and raise millions, if not billions of dollars, have happened at the inflection of technology, at the inflection of regulation, with things becoming deregulated or more regulated, or as consumers adopt different trends and adopt different ways that they approach a market or something that has been unchanged for 10, 20, 30 years or whatnot. Those large inflection points, those are the moments where people create solutions, and the best solution wins. The one that has done the work, the most work on that particular customer target, ends up winning that customer target as the people who are going to adopt it as the solution that they put front and center when they're thinking about how to do this thing, whatever that thing is that X is in the future, going forward. And then you talk about the why now, like why in this moment in 2023, but also be thoughtful about like the why 5-10 years from now as well. How will this remain relevant? Because as you know, things have trends, and they trend up, but they also trend down. And the thought process is in the midst of all of that, how can you be thoughtful about where your company will be 5 years from now, in 2028? Do you see, or do you have plans in place? And you may not have all the answers spelled out. We're not saying that. But do you have a thought or a trajectory of where or how you would be positioned or continue to be positioned to be a leader on top of this moment of inflection that you're exposing that your company is solving for? And any other pieces there, Tim?
No
Cool.
notes. Perfect.
Number 5, and then I think we're going to go to the second set. Yes. Tim,
I
take it
will
away.
take the baton here. So these are really more like super tactical things that you should make sure that you're just paying attention to in your application outside of like the higher level stuff that Monica just walked us through. So first one, like I know this seems silly, but we have to say it. Have complete answers. Like I've seen Monica's seen a lot more applications than I have because Monica's been at Techstars longer than I have. But in the ones that I've seen, like there are a lot of people with very truncated thoughts and are treating the application like a series of short bullet points is sufficient to get across key information, and that isn't the case. Like you really I love this statement, good writing as a result of clear thinking. Like, if you have a clear point of view on all the different things that Monica mentioned in the first half of this conversation, then you should be able to write succinctly and powerfully about those things to us in an application. And this is your moment to make an impression. Like obviously there's a bunch of different things you can attach to an application, pitch deck and video and product demo, etc. But and we will obviously look at those things. But at least me personally, like someone who has shown the ability to actually like write out clearly the story of their company, like that to me goes a long way, because that is, if for me, when I was a founder and I had an opportunity to write long form about the business, I always chose that over like a pitch deck or a set of visuals. So just like it let me kind of like have the freedom to kind of tell the breadth of the story that I wanted to tell. So take advantage of this. Again, don't write like a novel.
I was just going to say,
don't write a novel, but like be clear enough that like we get it from what you've written in the application. And when we dive into the video and we dive into the pitch deck and all the other stuff, it's like complementary to the story that you've given us in the application.
And sorry, go ahead, Tim. Oh, sorry. I was going to say, and for us, the where we came up with that bullet for the good writing is a result of good clear thinking, is that kind of adage that is, I would have written you something shorter, but I didn't have enough time.
Right.
But if you can clearly think out what you're saying and you can make it in a concise statement, that speaks volumes. I agree with Tim. Like you definitely do not want to spend an immense amount of time writing paragraphs after paragraphs. We don't have time to review that. I'll just be very honest. We're looking at thousands upon thousands of applicants across all the programs. We don't have time to do books, but you should have complete answers that are well thought out answers for the different things. Don't just put 1-word, 2-word things. There's a competitor question on there, and people just put no competitors, and that's it. Like stuff like that. Like that doesn't help us to understanding your market. So like just being thoughtful about like I've researched these 4 areas. I'm not seeing people in this specific space. I see people close, but this is what we're capitalizing on. Just some sort of narrative around it. It doesn't have to be a Bible or a whole tome of like of information, but it definitely does have to be complete, thought out answers with good grammar.
Excellent follow-on point. Actually, like I'm just going to ask. Because it relates to this, I'm going to answer one of the questions that I see, that have come up a few times. Because this relates back to another point that we talked about in terms of like being able to educate, us on a market maybe that we don't understand well. Someone asked, if you're building something in an industry that takes an hour to explain to someone who, is very immersed, in the industry because it's like a new concept, like how do we get that across in the application? And this answer is going to potentially not be a very satisfying answer, but at least my answer is like, this is what you're going to have to figure out how to do forever and ever in your startup, is to be able to clearly and concisely take complex concepts and break them down into something that is more bite-sized. Like you are just going to have to get good at that.
Yep.
Like there's no way around, figuring that part out. So like, advice that I have is like run it by other people. Like you have people in your life who don't know whatever the thing is that, as well as you do. So like test it on some people, be like, hey, if I told you this, like what questions do you have? Like, try to like, it's like goes back to the analogy of, how do you explain a concept to like a fourth grader, whatever. Like
Yep.
you do like, I'm not saying necessarily find a fourth grader, but like find someone, or others, in your life that like can give you feedback on that, like, and, stress test it before you kind of come, and try that, with an investor, or in our application or whatever. Because if you're not able to, boil it down in our application, like it's just going to keep coming up
Yep.
as a barrier for you in conversations, with investors. So yeah, I wish I had the silver bullet answer for like how to do it, but I think it's just going to take reps for you trying out different things to get there.
Awesome.
All right, I'm going to jump to the next one. Yeah, so don't skip questions. I know like this feels silly to say, but like like we've seen a lot of applications and this happens often. So, like it, and it kind of goes back, Monica brought this up, I think near the beginning of the conversation about like, sort of be yourself, be authentic, like don't try to, say something that you think investors want to, hear. Like, yeah. So if you don't like your answer, to a question, like, it also goes back to my analogy of like you have the same revenue 6 months in a row. Like, yeah, you may not want to put that, in there, but we're going to uncover that at some point. Right? Like, it's not like we're not going to know that. And so, like, you're better off answering the question as directly as you possibly can so that we have context, for that. So you're like, yeah, I'm pre-revenue and like, this is where I am in the process. Or yeah, like my revenue stagnated the last couple of months because I have a very seasonal business. And this is what happens in my seasonal business. And you just happen to cherry pick, the last 3 months. And, it happened to be because, this is, the low point of what we typically see in the business or whatever. I think just take the opportunity to answer these questions and, to give good context because they're there for a reason. And if you skip them, then it conveys to us that like either you have something to hide or you just didn't take the application that seriously. So you don't want us to have either impression, I don't think.
Either or. No, and I would say on this slide in particular, when we're saying 0 is better than skipping the question, if you don't have revenue, just put no revenue at 0. But if you skip the question, we don't know if you skip the question or if you don't have revenue. And actually it's 50-50. Half the time we go back and ask, like they had other things that drew us in there. And then they were like, oh, no, we've been doing about 10K MRR. And we're like, you didn't put that in the application. Were we supposed to guess that? But the other side is I do want to be very, very, spend a little bit of time on these 2 middle bullet points here. I've been with Techstars as part of the ecosystem for about 10 years. I've been an MD for going on 3 years now. I've seen thousands upon thousands of applications. And the number one questions that we always get about people coming into the mix is they are concerned that they haven't raised money yet, so they're not a fit. Or they're concerned that they don't have revenue, and so they're not a fit. In my class specifically, but also in the dozens of other classes that I've helped over the years with applications and mentorship and all that other good stuff, we've had people on both sides of the fence who've raised $0, who've come in having raised nothing. That Techstars is their very first check. That is totally fine. Or they bootstrapped it before or something. That's totally fine. We've had also tons and tons of people who have not earned $1 yet that are pre-revenue. They're still in the dev phase. They're still testing. They're still figuring things out. Those are okay, but you have to say it. To Tim's point, you have to say that we're still pre-revenue. We've raised only $5,000 from a pitch competition, and I put in $5,000 of my own money, and that's what we've done thus far. Just say that so we understand where you are. That is a much better perspective for us to have than you skipping the question because you think it's not competitive, and or skipping the question and it just looks like to us that you just didn't. You didn't take the time with the application. If you want us to spend time, you have to spend time too.
Oh, for sure. But I don't know, this may be controversial. I love companies that haven't raised any money yet.
Yeah.
I want to be the first. That excites me. So like I'm not I'm not saying that if you've raised money that you're not a good fit either, but I say that as an endorsement of like what other investors have decided about your business before you came to us is not necessarily the most meaningful thing to us. So like investing is very eye of the beholder, especially at the early stage. So like some more blocking and tackling, like check your links. I literally this one, like I was looking through some of our applications like yesterday, and I hit a private, a Google link to a doc that was set to private or didn't have sufficient permissions for me, and like that. Will I go back, and look at that? Like I asked, I clicked the little button saying, but like. You don't want that, like I'll probably go if I get permission, I'll probably go back, but like you don't want that to be your first impression. So like it's okay if you don't have a website yet, but like if you have something to share, and it's online, share it and make sure it works.
Yep.
Basically,
simple, clean, tight.
Like so have a short team video. Like to me, I really like these personally. Like I mean, I'm sure this varies. I'm sure your mileage is going to vary on this, like depending on the MD and on the program. But to me, like this is a great opportunity to like get to know you a little bit and to hear you in your own words. Yep. Talk about yourself and the business. Doesn't have to be long. Like. We're not gonna if it's a 10-minute video, goes back to like don't write a novel. If the video is super long, we have to go through a lot of apps. Like we may not necessarily get through the entire thing. So be pithy, but do it. Also, because you're gonna have to do this all the time anyways. Like so, it's good. I mean, if you're like worried about taking a few minutes to record a video talking about your business, I mean, like you're gonna be talking about your business, in 2-minute. Stretches for like an eternity of the life of your company. So like take advantage of, the fact that you're going to be doing this kind of storytelling all the time and, give us a little bit, of a window, into you and make sure obviously like, that the quality and the sound, like watch it afterwards and make sure that like one can hear you and that like, that it's of good enough quality for us to like make heads or tails out of once you submit it.
And a quick note here, I always tell folks that you are not required, we are not looking for, and we're not, I mean, yeah, if you have a nice video and some nice creative skills, that's great to show them off, but you do not have to go out and hire anybody or like do any special graphics or anything like that. Literally the bulk of the videos that are shown in are people with their cell phones, with this is our team. Hi, I'm walking around the office or just sitting at a table saying, this is what we do. This is, here's the 4 people on our team. We've been together for 12 years, or we've been friends for 12 years and we've been in this business for 6 months, or whatever it may be. But it really is just raw, open things. Again, it gives us a chance to see you off the screen, see you off of 2 dimension, get a 3rd dimension of you speaking and introducing yourself and talking about your business. If you do have creative skills and you have the time, great, but really just focus on the most important parts, which is explaining who and what your team are, how you met, how you work together, why you each are on the team, why you're both excited or anything like that within the time limit. I will say that we get a lot of videos that are like 5 minutes or like 10 minutes. We just do not have the capacity to watch videos of that length. So we typically only watch the first minute of a video. That's the time limit. So know that if you submit a longer video because you don't know how to edit or you don't have time to edit, I guess to some extent that's fine. But just note that we're typically only going to watch the first 1 minute of it. And we're definitely not looking for directors and scripts. And I've seen so many things where I'm like, you guys spent so much time on this video, but you didn't even spend any time on the questions on the application and stuff like that. So just be thoughtful there that it's just another dimension to the application. And just be thoughtful that we only have a minute or so, a minute to view what you submit.
You're definitely not being judged on your capabilities of video editing software successfully. No. All right. And then last one in this kind of 5 tips section is like, it's great to see some level of product. Now, a lot of you are not going to have a product live out in the world that you can just direct us to for us to experience. That's okay, it's very okay. But you probably have some version of a product either that you imagine that will be built, or that has an early prototype, or is simply just a tour of some wireframes that you put into Figma, right? Like whatever it is, like you're better off like taking a little bit of time to show us something or link us to something, because it helps, again, tell the story. If we can see what the product does, you'd be surprised how often your words in describing what a product does are not very successful relative to actually seeing how it works. So it's to your benefit to come up with some way of showing us your either existing experience or the one that you imagine for your product.
And I will say this, I've seen very successful companies who've gone on and raised full rounds, built full teams, full advisory boards and all that. They started off with an Excel sheet with thousands of formulas and things like that was the basis of their algorithm. And then they were able to code it, and then they were able to build it, and then they were able to whatever. But they started out and they were able to show, here's this front end, this is what it does, we have it all built out, but now we're coding it, or things like that. I've seen people start that early. Now, depending on every MD is different, every thesis is different within Techstars on what they're looking for, on if they want you to have a fully developed MVP, or if they want you to be in market, or whatever it may be. But just note that what we're looking for is we're looking for the ability to show whatever you have, and it could just be a wireframe, but just the ability to show where you're at, and that what you're thinking on how the solution is going to work. And in some sort of language adventure type method, which usually is wireframes, could be some sort of test version or something like that. But definitely just be thoughtful about showing it. And again, it does not have to be high production value, taped things, interviews with customers, or like those things are nice if you have them, and those things are great if you have them and if you can do them well. But we're more concerned about just the complete story. I'm sorry, I'm losing my voice. We're more concerned about the complete story of your application that includes some sort of demo of the product that you're building.
All right. So a couple quick reminders. Then we're going to go into the questions that have been queuing up here for us. And thanks to the team behind the scenes for helping us throw these questions in here from LinkedIn. Applications are due, at least for my program and for Monica's program, applications are due November 29th. I think we have 21 programs that are open right now. So it's not necessarily all of them, but a lot of them. So if you're interested in applying, please do that in the next couple of weeks. You can edit your application all the way up to the deadline. So take advantage of that, especially if maybe if some of you have applied already and you've made progress that you want to share with us, feel free to edit the application to reflect that up to the deadline. And one thing that I should note is that, and this is relatively new for us, so perhaps if you've gone through the application process in the past, you didn't see this, but you can designate a primary and an preference when you apply. So you can basically say, being a part of any Techstars program, and that's okay. But if there are programs you think are a great fit, from a thesis perspective, for what you're building, or maybe, geographic, you can let us know that either that program or those couple of programs really stand out to you, and we will kind of prioritize them and route them to those teams as appropriate. And you can also edit those preferences up until the deadline as well. So, housekeeping out of the way. Questions.
We like questions.
All right. So we can begin with this one from LinkedIn. The biggest thing you look for in the application?
Oof.
That's a hard question. I will say this, as a sidestep to answering that, I will say the biggest things that I immediately do a sweep for, if I see someone who hasn't submitted a pitch deck and hasn't submitted a video and hasn't submitted like any of like the core things we're asking for the demo, those are things that I'm looking for to kind of even see if I'm going to spend time. So I don't know if that's the biggest thing, but it's definitely the first thing I look for to see, am I going to spend time to really jump in on and give my time to evaluating this candidate if they haven't even included at least one or more of the core things that we ask for as part of the application process. But for me, I've been investing since 2006. Had many founders through many programs. I think definitely the first thing that I look for is I look for excitement. I'm a gut investor. I'm industry agnostic, and I think that for me it is definitely about like if I get a feel for it, I'm used to looking at applications. I do it all year round. If I get a feel for, am I excited about this applicant? And for other MDs, I would say, especially if you're in their area and you're doing something new, that would be key. For me, it's really like in the multiple areas that I invest in, am I excited to learn more? And so you have to be thoughtful about, almost like an advertiser, like how do you advertise enough about what you're doing to make people excited to have the next conversation with you, to want to pull you into a round one interview and learn more and have that, few more minutes to ask questions. I would say it's a hard thing to do, but something to be thoughtful about is giving people just enough that that you pull them in, but leaving them asking for questions that they want to engage. So it's a fine line to kind of get that line. So I do look for folks who have a skill with that. You can kind of tell, but just being thoughtful about expressing an exciting opportunity. And the opportunity could be you. It could be the moment. It could be the combination of you and the moment, but those kind of things drive excitement and make me want to spend more time with the application.
I would only add that when I'm looking at applications, the two things that are likely to make me want to learn more are a founder who has exceptional fit with the market that they're attacking and can demonstrate that, and that market is big and exciting. If I see that, even if I haven't necessarily seen the sort of progress and momentum, I'm still potentially interested. And then on the converse, if I see a lot of really interesting recent progress and momentum, even if I'm less certain about the market, I'm still likely to lean in, because that in and of itself is hard to do. And so I want to learn more. If I see oh man, this person's done a lot in the last 3 months and really demonstrated a ton of momentum. I don't know about this market. It may not be that big, but let me double click, and want to go deeper, and and the converse. So if you get one of those two things right for me, then I will likely tap in.
All right, excellent. So this next one, could you please explain what does the term underrepresented founders mean within the definition of the program to apply? Industry agnostic program focused on underrepresented founders. So could you give some context around that?
I think that's probably
so there are two definitions across the board. There's a Techstars wide definition that includes a broader set of folks that are underrepresented across nationalities, across immigration status, across other multiple statuses. And then in particular for the JP Morgan programs, we can invest in anyone, but our focus and our target is investing in underrepresented founders. So Black, Latino, Indigenous, Asian Pacific Islander in that area. So there can be two different definitions, but I think across the board, the Techstars programs are pretty proud of our record on diversity and focusing on emerging markets and founders who come from a wide variety of backgrounds.
Amazing. This one is from LinkedIn. So what if you are building something in an industry that takes an hour to explain to someone who is very immersed in the industry because it's a new concept? How do we get that across in an application?
I think I covered this one during our presentation. Unless Monica, you have something to add, I think I basically said what I wanted to say about that one.
No, I'd agree. I would just say being thoughtful about what are the strongest points that are new for that person to know. And how does that trying to connect it to something that is widely known in the world. If you can do that, you can probably, and a lot of people do it for we're the Airbnb for this or that. People do it with that kind of phrasing. six one way, half a dozen another on people who like that versus don't like that terminology.
Right.
But it is about just relating it into concepts and things that people already know, and using that as the path to get them to understand something that's more complex. And so you have to practice it. It is not something that you're going to do for the first time and get right. It is something you're going to have to practice with a few people. And I think Tim mentioned that is just like going through and having conversations with a few people that you trust to give you clear feedback. Maybe they're industry people, maybe they're not, but either way, they're going to give you clear, honest feedback and say, okay, now that makes sense. I'll be honest. I always tell everybody the running joke is like, my mother is a very intelligent woman. She's in tech for years, but for years, she didn't know what I did. And then, again, that has to do with because her industry is different. Like what she's doing and what she's focusing on is different. And so, and I talk to her all the time. So I would say like, you have to be thoughtful about like getting opinions and figuring out what you do and how to make that plain to folks who may not swim in your lane every day like you do, who aren't obsessed about it and talk about it and joke about it like we do, because this is, our life. So you have to practice. So I would say is the biggest thing, just to add to Tim's good points earlier, just practice as many times as you can and in many places as you can to kind of make sure that folks give you some feedback on, hey, I'm a university person. Hey, I'm a this person. I'm a that person. And once you get more of that 360, you'll refine the approach and it'll be a better talk.
Great. Somebody asks, if we are in a place of rapid growth and our team quickly is evolving, how inclusive should we be in our team video? Everyone touching the company right now, or just those who have equity or long-term roles?
I mean, I would say the founding team is like, the most important. If there's someone who isn't part of the founding team that like has an essential, perspective to offer, maybe. But to Monica's point, this is like a short video. So like there really isn't that much opportunity for like a lot of people to, like do a lot of expository, like, talking during the video. So to me personally, I would say, founding team and like, and if your founding team is like 4 or 5 people, you may even want to, truncate the number of people talking even more than the 4 or 5, and just like have a couple of people share and just have the other people kind of wave and introduce themselves or something. Because it really, once you get into the mode of a bunch of people sharing, then it's just hard to for us to keep our attention, I think.
And I would say to add to that, you don't want to add questions where there don't need to be questions. So I've seen a lot of people who do exactly, I think as the question answer was mentioning, they've included everybody who's touched it and work on it. And then you wonder like, okay, how is equity split? Like, okay, how are they, can they pay all these people? Are they going to be profitable? Things like that. And you may or may not have all the answers to that in your application. So that may create a question where there shouldn't be one. So just be thoughtful about like the key people who are more or less in charge. I always say, be thoughtful about folks that you would want to come to an accelerator. Who would be the people who you would want to have in the accelerator sessions with you, or who you might tag team? If you were the CEO and you couldn't make it, who would be the 1 or 2 people who would be there if you couldn't make it? Those would be my thoughts of like who should be in the video, because you have a lot of excess folks, and again, are quite like teams not getting along, or teams not being clear on who's in charge, or clear on how decisions are made, are one of, unfortunately, the failures of really high performing, high potential teams. And so out the gate, you want to just give the strongest, tightest shot as possible of like who you're bringing on board and presenting to the world as the people who are making decisions about this company at this stage.
Can I just like make a side comment from this, like that just strikes me? Hey, people that you hire as contractors to do contract work on your business are not on your team.
Correct.
I just like really want to emphasize that, like, sometimes you need to have contractors help, build product or to do certain work, and like, and that's okay. Explain the situation. Like the absolute worst thing for me is for people to like list a bunch of people on a team and be like, this is my team, and like really there's only one person working on it full time, and that's you, and you've got a bunch of other people that you're paying money to like do certain aspects of the business, and like those people aren't likely to go full time in the business even if you raise money, right? They're contractors to do a very specific task in your business. Just say that. Don't try to project that they're part of a team, or that like that there's something bigger there than what really is the case, because like again, we're going to figure that out at some point. And, it is not a bad thing to have contractors working on your business, but it isn't the greatest thing to, try to inflate what's actually happening, within the team construct. So be as clear as possible about that. Like, we get it. We've been in many of these situations. We're not going to judge. Just be clear, and that will be, and that will help.
Agreed.
Excellent. This one is for Tim and Monica. Companies that you've invested in that have failed, what is usually the overarching issue?
Everything. I would say the team. I would go back to the team. I would say the team is the biggest thing, because I think most folks are pretty battle ready on markets, and we've got them, customers and all that kind of stuff. But the team has to understand, having diverging visions, I would say. So like one side of the team wants to go hardcore towards, some sort of exit, and the other side of the team is trying to go hardcore towards some sort of, 20x, scaling. And if they never were at the same, if they were never at the same mindset, then they're constantly fighting against each other. But then also just general like team dynamics of like loving to work with each other and wanting to work with each other in the very, very hard times. Those are things that can shut teams down, because, not everybody can do it. And are able to do it if money isn't coming in, and not everyone can do it or are able to do it, at the rates that are required until everybody can come on board full time on full salary. So those kind of things make a company's foundation unstable. And those were, I've seen, I'm trying to think of like the couple folks who didn't. The couple folks who didn't make it, like I think are definitely it was team issues. Then the other side is the fundraising. Obviously, the market is very tight right now. I would say like the fundraising aspect of not being able to read the market well, or fundraise, past the Series A or past certain levels or things like that. It could have been the market at that point. Could have been the industry. Could have been those kind of things. But those are the market telling you, hey, maybe the solution that you were going for was great a year and a half ago, but now, something easier or quicker has come along, and people are shifting their money into that side. And so you might have made it to your seed round and your Series A round, but you may not be able to, go a little bit higher because they didn't want to pivot. And again, that kind of comes back to team. So again, it's a myriad of reasons, but there is no one thing that makes a team fail or not fail, at least in my opinion.
I fully agree. The only thing I would add is that I've seen is speed. If you are like the teams that execute quickly and experiment rapidly and go fast are the ones that I've seen succeed. The ones that have great ideas and are maybe first to market with certain things, but like just aren't able to figure out how to move quickly and iteratively. Like they're the ones who end up getting lapped and have a hard time, staying alive, because they just haven't figured out how to operationalize, that. All the things you just mentioned, by the way, are things that were difficult for my company. So I'm happy to talk about things that we did wrong, which are all the things that Monica just talked about, plus the thing I just mentioned.
Yeah, fail. I was just going to say, just the ability to fail fast and learn from it is invaluable.
Yes.
Pivot, able to pivot. Sorry.
One last question here. That's all we have time for. What is the process from the time the applications close? Will there be a follow-up interview? And when will a founder hear back typically? What does that process look like?
So every MD is different. We do typically have 3 stages of interviews across all programs, which is a round 1 interview. We don't have a specific, hey, you'll all hear from round. I think there is actually a date, and maybe you guys know that better than me. That's like, all the round 1 folks will be notified by a certain date, but there is a round 1. Not everybody gets a round 1 piece of feedback. Next step. And so obviously you would get some sort of notification that said, hey, unfortunately, you were not chosen for round 1 this cycle. But I will say that there is your primary team, and then there is your alternate team as well. So there's the ability to be assessed if you, for some reason, don't make it through round 1 with your primary team. There's the ability to be assessed by your alternate team as well. So again, that process takes time across the different teams, and so you just have to be patient. I know, like, it's hard, and we get a lot of two notes we get all the time is people asking, when will they hear back, and then number two, asking for feedback on their applications. And unfortunately, both of those are very difficult to gauge, especially across all 21 programs that are up this cycle.
All right. We are at time. So I just want to say, let me bring myself back on stage really quick. Let me say thank you all so much for coming today, our audience, our founders. Tim and Monica, do you just want to quickly mention where can founders reach out to you, and what is the best way to engage?
Sure. For me, it's always LinkedIn. I always say the same thing every time is reach out on LinkedIn and say how we met. Hey, I was a part of this webinar. How we were first, engaged, even if we didn't get a chance to talk. I was part of this webinar. I'd love to learn more, or, XYZ, I was recommended by this person, or just say how we got connected. Because I do get a lot of inbound, but LinkedIn is the best for myself. And then we have the regular Techstars Detroit site that's on the Techstars site for more general information about our program.
Yeah, I mean, LinkedIn's definitely a solid place for me. I mean, I don't know. I'm throwing up my email address here, and Monica's. Hopefully, Monica's not going to lose her mind that I put her email address.
You're totally good.
But you can definitely get at me, there as well. So either LinkedIn or email, and definitely, spend time. If you're interested in my program, interested in Monica's program, go to our program pages, on Techstars, because you can learn more about like our thesis. You can learn more about, obviously for Monica's program, she's got a history of past companies. My program's new, so I don't. But you can see who our partners are and who mentors are, et cetera. So you can learn more about the programs on those pages too.
Awesome.
And I did already put in the chat more Techstars events. You're highly encouraged to come check those out, invite your co-founders, and there's really valuable information that we're always putting out on our digital sessions, our LinkedIn, there's blogs. So for any founders that just want to learn more and immerse themselves in all of the knowledge that we give out, definitely do so. Tim and Monica, thank you all so much, and we'll see you all on the next time.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.